Hey Bat fans, Luke here, ready to do this week's Bat Chat session with everybody, where we're going to take a look at all the Batman related books I picked up this week, and I believe there were 5 of them. And all in all, it was a pretty decent week. One, I kind of scratched my head a little bit, and maybe I didn't really enjoy it as normally as I would. But then there were some where it was just really superb. But we're going to kick off with the one part of the Bat books that many Bat fans were anticipating this week. How much they were anticipating will obviously vary by individuals, but for me, I was looking forward to this, and that is the first crossover of the DC Rebirth era, and that is the Night of the Monster Men, which were found in parts 1 and 2 this week. Part 1 found in Batman issue number 7, where we have the standard cover, which is done by Yannick Paquette, and then we have this Tim Sale variant, and then part 2, which was found in Nightwing issue number 6, also a Yannick Paquette cover. Night of the Monster Men. For those who are unfamiliar with the Monster Men, most notably could be seen in the book Monster Men, written by Matt Wagner. I believe could be found in the single issues. I believe was Batman Confidential. I could be wrong on that, but it was pretty much what we see here in this taking of it. But it's too early to tell if this is going to be a modernization or a quasi-sequel of the actual Matt Wagner story. So really too early to tell, I think. But in this case, it is being headed by Steve Orlando, and Steve Orlando, if you're unfamiliar with his work, he could be found in Batman and Robin Eternal. He's one of the key members there. He wrote Midnighter during the DCU era. And most recently, he's doing Supergirl. And also, he got penned to do the Justice Society of America at some point. Or the Justice League of America. I can't remember. One of those two he's got. So he's a well-established name. So Night of the Monster Men. Again, parts 1 and 2 this week, which I really did enjoy, that we had 2 chapters of the story all in 1 week, and we're going to get part 3 in Detective next week. So it's going to basically work again. This, if I'm familiar with the story, it's going to cross over from Batman to Nightwing and Detective. So every week you're pretty much going to get a story. So while this is going to be a 2-month event, it's going to be really not even 2 months. When we say 2 months, it's September, October. But I believe it's going to be 6 issues, and it's only going to get done in about a month time. So as far as an event goes, that's pretty cool. Another thing that's good about it is that the writer is going to, of this crossover event, it's going to be consistent, as I understand it, through each of the issues. Steve Orlando is going to pretty much be heading this. So you're going to get a consistent feel and tone and direction from starting to end, which I think is really cool. But the story so far, I enjoyed it. In the main book, not really the main book, the first part, we have art by Riley Rossmo. And if I'm familiar with him, I was just most recently introduced to his work in Constantine the Hellblazer during the DCU era. And I like his art. If I had to complain anything about his style, it's I think his proportionality is kind of off. And basically, to my point, I think if you look at the very first page, or actually it's the second page, the first page is the morgue. In Batman number 7, you're going to see Batman and Batwoman on top of a building in the rain, looking across with binos, and the capes are like holy crap big, and the night vision goggles are the binos that Batwoman is using. They are monsters. I mean, they absolutely just overwhelm the size of her hands. So if you have any, and Batman's got little tiny ears. So if you have any complaints about Riley Rossmo, I think you can see it in just the one panel or the one page of this issue. But if you can get past that, like I can, the art's great. 'Cause I think it fits absolutely perfectly with this story. With the monsters, just looks really cool, and you really did get like a good horror theme throughout the story. So I really do enjoy Riley Rossmo's art in Batman, and the art in Nightwing done by Antonio. I can't remember his first name. It's a very consistent feel. So if this continues, I don't know. I can't remember who's doing the art in Detective, but if they consistently keep this kind of trend up, where you got the same writer and you got artists with very similar styles throughout this crossover event, I think you're going to get an overall very consistent feel through this. And if you're reading this in trade, it's going to read rather seamless. So that's going to be cool. Then this leads the question whether or not this is going to execute well. And is this an interesting story for some? And I'll say for the first two issues, this was fun. I really did enjoy it. It's not my favorite, but I'm interested, and it's really cool. If I had to kind of dock anything with this, Batman obviously still dealing with the aftermath of Detective Comics with the quote-unquote death of Tim Drake. Even though he's really not. But to Batman he is, and everyone else. Batman was a little kind of pushy with those he interacted with. And I think it was more, I'm not going to say the focal part of the story, but it was a theme that kind of bled from this issue even to Nightwing, of Batman really trying to keep his Bat family members kind of close to the chest right now. Not willing to take some risks. So while he's being pushy and abrupt with some, he's not, I think, as aggressive as Batman usually is. So he's kind of playing it safe right now, and justly so, from based off what he thinks he knows, what happened to Tim. That's understandable, but it just seems Batman's just a little weak right now. Weak and, again, pushy and abrupt with people. So, but take that aside. This is a good story. There's one page that had Hugo Strange lifting out in a gym, butt naked on a bench, and it just cracked me up. But overall, this has the potential to be a really creepy story and a fun story. I'm not sure where Hugo Strange is going to go with this, but we see toward the very end we're going to, I believe it was Blackgate, not Arkham. Supergirl going to trying to track down Hugo Strange, because it's another thing that was kind of cool about this story is that these monster men are all characters that we have seen in the pages of Batman. One of the monsters, the individual that slit his throat. I think he's the first monster. The second monster is the individual that shot down the airplane in issue 1. So you're willing to believe we have the individual who was on top of the rooftop when basically Gotham was trying to help him out from trying to commit suicide. So you're willing to bet that you're going to see that. But basically all these individuals are going to tie into that, because right now all the corpses of those people who's been kind of referenced so far in the pages of Batman are all missing. So Dick's aware of it, and that's where Gotham Girl is heading now. So overall, I thought this was a solid start. Not perfect in any means, but fun. Again, combining the two issues together, I would give it a 3.5 out of 5. And kind of curious to see how this first crossover event works out, because, I mean, being the first one for DC in this rebirth era, it is kind of important to kind of stick the first one. But again, I think they have everything in place to structurally have it a success. It just basically comes down to the story. Next book we're going to take a look is Harley Quinn, issue number 4. I'm not going to continue to get the variants for Harley Quinn. I'm picking them up now because of Bill Siekiewicz. Bill Siekiewicz' art is just fantastic. I'm putting him up there with Jacques and Capullo and Juan Ferreira and Fabok, Gleason. Um, it's just one of those artists I just really enjoy. So for now, playing it by ear, I'll pick him up, but I'm definitely not gonna be doing this long term. If Sikowitz would quit doing the variants for Harley tomorrow, I'd quit getting them. So, but yeah, Harley Quinn, issue number 4. This is one of the issues I was mentioning. I kind of want to scratch my head about this one. I'm not going to go too far in depth because normally you just read Harley and you have a good time and you just kind of move on with it. This one, I think the errors were pretty out in the open here. I think basically there's 2 stories in essence of this. You're dealing with the fallout of what's going on in New York, and she's trying to help some of these people who are selling hot dogs on the vendors, and then using the hot dogs for being paid, and then going out helping the other people in New York kind of recover. But then it goes on from there, and it just abruptly switches to these people, these telephone, or the what do they call them? The telephone people will call you and try to solicit money from you, or whatever. So there's this bad place in, I believe it was India, one of these phone companies, and it's her going out there to kind of put an end to it. And basically, I mean, she does, but it just felt like this was 2 stories they crammed into one, and definitely this was 2 separate stories, to be honest. Harley Quinn stories are normally good in one-shots. They're single-issue stories, with the exception of what we've seen in the past couple, but they definitely try to cram 2 stories into one here, and I think the risk, or the, not really the risk, it might be kind of rough way of saying it, but the outcome of trying to rush 2 stories into one single story, with some of the key elements kind of cut out, and the flow and the character development is basically suffered, and definitely more in your face. So I'll give this a 2.5 out of 5 average. Yeah, it was okay, but definitely not used to or definitely not to the level I'm expected when reading Harley. I mean, again, Harley's not an awesome, stellar book, but it's one you have a good time reading every time. And this one, really didn't really enjoy it all that much. Justice League number 5. This wraps up the first story arc in this, and this is another story where I think it got kind of rushed, because you read about the first 3/4 of this book, it's got a good flow, and then you see the ending coming, and it got really rushed. And basically what it comes down to is that the 4 pillars, what is called pillars, can be defeated. Well, basically what they're doing is they're taking away the powers of the Justice League, the people who are defenders of the Earth. But what it comes down to, Flash realizes that, he just got to just not let them take his power. When Jessica Cruz comes down with the with Simon Baz, and their rings stop working, they basically just gotta fight the will of these 4 pillars to diminish the powers of the ring, and they use the ring and whatnot. And Cyborg too, and they basically just learn to resist them, and they're kind of defeated. Aquaman's part in this, what he's doing with the crystals that he was finding at the bottom of the ocean floor that were used to kind of combat the song of the 4 pillars and kind of interrupt the transmission. It felt kind of just thrown in there, to be honest. And Superman's part, it was okay. Basically, he's the one that actually wraps everything up. Actually, those 4 transmitters that are down at the core of the Earth that's triggering all these earthquakes, he actually pulls above the surface and detonates it to get rid of the 4 pillars. So Superman's part was pretty cool. And overall, it was a decent story. Just kind of execution kind of suffered a little bit. The art in this was phenomenal. Tony S. Daniels' art was just great. we had a good point. We were talking on Roundtable last night about Brian Hitch, and he's kind of definitely a different style than Jeff Johns. So when you're reading Jeff Johns' run on Justice League and reading Brian Hitch, it is two different styles where Hitch kind of focused more on the action and Johns will kind of put more emphasis on the character. So if I had to kind of equate it, we have like Johns being like Christopher Nolan in the Batman. So there's some action, but a lot of good character development. Where Brian Hitch is like, oh, what's his name? Did the Transformers. Totally forgot his name. But either way, just contrasting. Man, that's gonna drive me crazy. Well, I'm sure I'll ring a bell here in a minute. Michael Bay, that's it. Brian Hitch is like Michael Bay, really hit on the action. So while it has a different tone, it's still a good story. And they kind of end it on a note where definitely this is the quasi end, but I think we're gonna see the four pillars and who was really behind it, because someone was pulling the strings on this, made the decision to get these four pillars down to earth, and they have a leader at some point. If you kind of read this and you read the ending, it definitely leaves it open. We're gonna continue this at some point. But again, the ending just felt really rushed. Like it came, like I said, about 3/4 of the way to the issue. And then it's just like, okay, let's hurry, wrap this up, quick. And that's the way it kind of felt. So, I'm going to give this a 3 out of 5. It was good. Again, the art was fantastic. It just felt really rushed, to be honest. All right, last book we're going to take a look at is Trinity #1. Written, drawn, colored, lettered, everything under the Sun by Francis Manapul. Let's go ahead and get the obvious right out. The artness was phenomenal. It was absolutely beautiful to look at. However, Manapul kind of has some baggage with him in that he is guilty by association with Brian Buccellato, and their main criticism from the time on The Flash up until Detective Comics, and the stories of these guys here, Anarchy, Icarus, and Buccellato's part in this one, which is Blood of Heroes, respective stories in Detective Comics. They can't finish the story. And while I enjoyed Anarchy, and yeah, the ending of Icarus did feel a little flat. I tell you that the one when Manapul left in Blood of Heroes, when we had basically the Joker's daughter robot, man, that ending of that story arc just blew. So unfortunately, Buccellato and Manapul have a reputation of not finishing stories. And this, as I was reading this was a great issue. Great character development between Wonder Woman, Superman, and Batman, with the heavy focus of, obviously, this is not the Trinity of what we're used to yet. And there is a big wall between Superman and particularly Bruce, where Wonder Woman is trying to get the Trinity together and kind of learn to work as a team. And how to do that, let's go to Superman's house with Lois and John and have an evening dinner together. And that's basically the issue in this, is them having the dinner and just the bickering. Not really bickering, but it's just like you just feel the tension between Superman and Batman. And toward the end of it, they do kind of mend a little bit. Batman is still hesitant because, his best friend, the new 52 Superman is gone, and this guy just shows up as Superman just like him, with memories that he's not aware of because he came from a different time. And oh, by the way, if Batman believes he's been here this whole entire time, he really could have helped maybe his best friend in not getting killed. So there's tension between the two. But the fact that they are both fathers and they have a good outlook on, not really good outlook, a unique and shared outlook on what being a parent means and what their kids are growing up to and into, and kind of the challenges that kind of comes. Kind of brings them together. And we see a twist at the very end with, which can mean a bunch of things, but I think it's just a portal in time where we're seeing a different version of Pa Kent with Clark. So are we going to see something like, Convergence, where they're just going to have a keyway from, not really a keyway, a gateway to these different periods of time, or is this just a vision or whatnot? It was overall just a really fun story. Wonder Woman was awesome in this. She brings a boar to the dinner, so most people bring a bottle of wine or a cake or dessert or something. She's like, I'm gonna bring a wild boar. Can't fault her, but you get what she was trying to get at. And this was a fun issue. However, it's just as you're reading this, you're just wondering, man, this is good. Can Manapul kind of handle all this? A lot of responsibilities for one person if he's doing everything in his book. And yeah, it's monthly, but we'll see. As this story goes on, it gets good, and you're really enjoying it. But get closer to the end, you're just wondering. Kind of like what we talk about Scott Lobdell. Red Hood is right now just being phenomenal, but that's the problem. It's like Lobdell, so you're kind of wondering, when's it gonna hit rock bottom? Unfortunately, until Manapul can stick an ending universally, which a lot of people can believe. And like I said, I was a little more forgiving with Anarchy, because I did think it did end pretty good. Not perfect, but pretty good. But Icarus was not very good. Flash was not very good. And until he kind of shakes that reputation off, we're all going to be kind of hesitant. So we'll see, but I'm going to give this a 4 out of 5. This was beautiful to look at, and the interaction between the three was just totally awesome. I recommend it, but again, kind of right now, we're just kind of like taking it kind of cautiously to kind of see how Manapul will end it all up at some point. So anyway, those were this week's books. Let me know in the comments below what you thought of the books, and then we'll bat chat about it. And until next week,